Hey guys, I didn't want to have to film this part of the video, but I need to put a disclaimer in this. I am not responsible if you mess up your system doing this. This is for professionals, really people that are pros at doing this and aren't afraid to have to take the system apart many times if they decide to go to Mojave. I figured that one out the hard way. It's a pain. This system will work great on any supported operating system except Snow Leopard, and I haven't tried Lion, but it should work on Mountain Lion and later with this particular card in it. But if you try to boot into a non-supported operating system like Snow Leopard, even though the system natively originally supported it, you'll end up with a black screen and you won't be able to get out of it because there's no boot screen, menu or anything like that. I was lucky I could remote into it, update Snow Leopard to Mavericks, and then move the system until it allowed me to boot back into High Sierra with the startup disk menu because it wasn't showing up in Snow Leopard on the remote. Basically, if you're doing this, you're going to lose your boot screens, most of the boot control buttons, the boot menu, and a lot of different things that make this system basically really hard to work with. We'll go with really hard to work with. It's not impossible to use, but it will be really hard to work with. If you go into that unsupported operating system, you're going to get stuck and not be able to get out. If you're in a supported one, it works great. If you're going to Mojave, on the other hand, the installer patcher by Colin Mister works great until Mojave installs. And then it will go into boot loop, shut off, boot loop, shut off. You can't fix it. I tried everything. So basically what you have to do is take the screen back off, pull the hard drive out, find a system that you can boot the patcher into, patch the drive, then stick it back into Mojave. And in the next episode, and I finished the video out with this, we will be talking about Mojave and how it performs. And it does indeed perform quite well. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's running Mojave currently now. In the video it isn't. It's running High Sierra, and it runs Mojave beautifully. But getting there is why this disclaimer has to be made. So disclaimer, guys. Don't follow this, thinking it's going to be really easy to do, because even though this hardware on here is 100% supported in Mojave now and works super great, getting it to run's the hard part. Anyway, so enjoy today's video. Hello, I'm Greg Retke of Retke Mods, and welcome to a special episode where we will be upgrading my mid-2011 iMacs GPU from an HD 6750M 512 meg to a GTX 765 M 2 gig from a Dell Alienware system. And this is a video I've been wanting to make since probably mid-2018. I got this system, this 21-inch, 21.5 inch iMac here back in December 2017 from this bodybuilder woman. She was big, she was built like a truck, and her husband, who happened to be an Apple genius. So this thing was well taken care of. Very interesting story. But anyway, I got it off of Facebook Marketplace, and at the time when I bought it, I didn't realize that it was going to have problems. This system works 100%, no problems whatsoever, but these systems are known to have GPU problems because the AMD card in it, the 6000 series, all of them are known for delaminating and just basically croaking. And you can't do a whole lot about it. They'll all die eventually. And unlike the mid-2011 MacBook Pros, this mid-2011 iMac does not have integrated graphics for the from the CPU, the Intel graphics. Even though the CPU has it, there's nothing in here that enables it. So when the GPU dies in this system, it's dead. And there's also other problems with this, because this system is still a very capable system. It's running off a Sandy Bridge i5 right now. I will be upgrading that one day. I just haven't gotten around to it. But it's running off a Sandy Bridge i5, and it's socketed and fully upgradable. I'll be sticking probably an i7 2600 in it eventually. But how I keep saying this system's so capable still, it's held back by one thing, and that is the GPU. And that's because it is not metal supported. And metal supported GPUs are required for Mojave. And of course you can still run Mojave on this system. It will run, and I have videos showing it running if you want to check those out. But even though it runs, there's no GPU support, no patches for it or anything. So it runs in basic rendering mode basically, and it runs terribly. And that's just because the GPU, there was never support for it. So we're going to be upgrading to this 765 here, this 765M from a Dell Alienware system. And that will enable metal, and then we can have graphics. Now, this tutorial isn't totally a tutorial. I'm not going to be showing you how to take apart the system step by step, but I'll be showing you how it installs and how it works. And let's go over a little detail about why I just finally decided to do this, and why I went with this particular card. Basically, the GPU that I chose here is a GTX 765 M, which was, like I said before, from a Dell Alienware system. These GPUs are some of the only GPUs that are fully compatible with these. And they will not allow you to have boot screens. They won't allow you to use target display mode anymore. But other than that, Mojave will work 100% with this GPU. And the Mac will still work fine. You'll just have to live without those features. And I chose a 765 because it's a Kepler based card. Kepler was the very last Nvidia chipset, well, GPU supported by Apple, that Apple actually put in their systems, were Kepler cards. Then they went into an exclusivity with AMD for a few years. And one day web drivers and stuff may come back out for Mojave, but as of filming this, it hasn't happened yet. But anyway, since Kepler's the last one that's supported, they still have native drivers in Mojave, so these will run with no drivers needed. So I chose this. And this is also good because unless Apple eventually integrates Maxwell and later drivers, if you put a Maxwell or later card in here, even though it may work, and it would especially work in Windows, even though it may work, you won't have any graphics drivers for OS X or Mac OS. And that is because of you have to enable the web drivers before they work. And you can't do that without being able to see what you're doing on the screen. So if you put a Maxwell or later card into one of these systems, you're just going to have a black screen and you won't be able to use it. And Luke Miani found that one out the hard way. His 980M black screen, he couldn't get anything to work. And the way it looks and sounds, he may have fried that logic board. But sorry, you know, it happens. It's a risk you take doing this. But I offered to actually help him, and I hope I can help him. But anyway, getting back into it, why I went with this GPU was because it was the cheapest one on eBay. The 765 was the cheapest I could find. It was 99 bucks with shipping, $99, and it should work a lot better than the built-in the one that's in this system right now, and it should work great. And I am going to be basing a lot of this stuff off of a article I read back in June, I think, of 2018. When I got this system, getting back into the backstory, I decided that I wanted to replace the GPU eventually, and I'd read online that people had done it. Well, I forgot about it. I just was using this system as a tertiary system, not a secondary system. It doesn't get used a whole lot. Secondary systems, a lot of my secondary systems get used about as much as my primary machines. This was even less than that. It sits off in an area where I can't really get to. So I just kind of forgot about it. And in June of 2018, there was a fella online, which I'll show you. Actually, I can show you right now. Let's see here. Josh Lambert from Low End Mac did this tutorial online of how he got his 27-inch iMac to work with a 765. And I totally forgot about this article until the Luke Miani videos started coming out where he was going to be upgrading. And I finally decided to buy a GPU. And I even totally forgot he got a 765, honestly. I just got the 765 because it was the cheapest. And I figure that's what Josh did too. But anyway, we'll be going into more detail about this in a second. But anyway, Josh inspired me to want to do this again, and then I totally forgot about it again until Luke Miani started everything back in, I think it was November. Okay, and I finally decided when Luke Miani said he was giving up to actually do it. And I bought everything, and then I refound Josh's article and found out he was using the same GPU that I was using. So this should be really easy to follow. And even though he's doing a 27-inch and we're doing a 21.5, it will still work the same way. It requires some modifications that we'll have to go through, and but it should work great. Everything should work fine. Before we start on with all this stuff, though, we will show you a few things. What the current performance is with the GPU that's in it and stuff, and then we'll go into how to take it apart and stuff and go on from there. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so since I decided that this is a 1080p monitor, why not do a screen capture of everything we're doing so we can just you know, see it at the best clarity possible here. And right now we can see the specs right here. We've got the 765M according to this, and all the details about it right here. If we go into let's see here, where is it? The OpenGL extensions viewer right here, we'll get more specs about the card right here. And this will tell us everything we need to know about the card. And if we look down here, it says metal platform features not supported. Now, this will tell you basically the basics of the card and what it can do. Okay, as we can see here, we can just look through it. All the stuff it can do. Okay. It's all the details about it. This is the card. This is the system. So, going through here, I've done some benchmarks already. I downloaded both GFX Metal and GFX OpenGL. Of course, Metal won't work. When you run the thing, it will just crash. Okay? But if we open up GFX OpenGL and run it, we end up with these results here. Let's see if we can get them to load up here. Okay, and these are the results First off, in the OpenGL tests, Manhattan ES 3.1 won't run. It won't support on this GPU. But these are the settings we ran it at, and these were the results. Okay, we will compare these results to the GTX 765 when we're done with that. But before we go on with all that stuff, we will want to go over and real briefly look at Josh's website here. And I'll do a link to this article right here. But basically, this is the write-up he did on it, as we can see here. Very nice write-up. He had to do a lot of cutting and modifying, which I'm going to try to bypass a little bit. But you know, it will work great. And here is the problems. Okay, we will not have an Apple boot screen. We won't be able to get into the recovery or boot option menu. Of course, you can do that in the disk startup though. Brightness control will no longer work, but you can use a program called Shades to control it. Only when the Thunderbolts will do display out, and you can't monitor the GPU temperature anymore. That's just a little slight drawback. I don't think that's going to be a big problem. And then also no target display mode. Although there's apparently a hack to modify the BIOS on this card to possibly make it work. No one has actually done it yet. So at least been successful at doing it. But anyway, thank you, Josh, for writing this up. This is very helpful. And yeah, so basically now we're going to switch back over to my real camera, and we will talk about how to go along and doing this, tearing it down and doing whatnot. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we continue on, I will be actually following an iFixit guide, which I'll be having the MacBook here with it on it while I'm doing it. So we'll have that. Also, I don't think I've mentioned this, but GPU swap will work on any iMac, I believe, from the mid 2009 all the way through the mid 2011s. They all have MXM GPUs that should be compatible and should work. Although the mid 2009 and some of the 2010 models do have compatible graphics with Mojave with the patcher. If you have the HD 4000 graphics, you could just use those and use the patcher to bypass the metal requirement, and it would run in full acceleration. But of course, the later models that have the 5000 and 6000 series graphics, that won't work anyway. And you know, this is also very helpful because that GPU is going to eventually die anyway. So I'm going to start taking this thing apart, and we'll take it as it goes. So I'm going to first take the RAM out the bottom off camera, because that would be a pain to do. So you want to take the RAM out the bottom first, and then you can take the screen off and start from there. So let's get into it. Oh, and one other thing, always make sure you're unplugged, of course, and discharge the power supply by holding the power button in for at least 5 seconds. That way you won't fry anything, hopefully. Okay, so the next step is to pull the glass off. Now, iFixit and even I would recommend that you use large, powerful suction cups to do even pressure as you pull it off. But the mid 2009 through mid 2011s, the glass was actually held on by magnets. Really strong magnets, but magnets. And even though this glass is really thin and flimsy and can break easily, you can still grab the top of it and pull it off and lift it out if you're careful enough. I would not recommend doing that, but you can, and that's what I'm going to do because I don't have the suction cups. So I'm going to do that right now. And that's also why this SYM card stays so nicely, because it's wedged between the glass and the case. Anyway, so let's start prying it off. It lifts out just like that, and then you can just move it off to the side. Try not to get it dirty, try not to break it. Alright, so now I have to remove 8 Torx 10 screws. There's the logic board. Alright, with the logic board removed, I can now take the heatsink assembly and graphics card out, which is this right here. And then, let's see here. The whole assembly should just lift straight up. Just like that. There we go. There is the GPU. Now this seems to be a very different looking heatsink from the one from the tutorial. It also needs some thermal pads for that and stuff. It's a very different setup here, but it should still work fine. This card's shorter than the other one, but this is a lower end card. So yeah, it should still work in theory, because I know that the 27-inch iMac cards, which are that size, fit in the 21.5-inch. So it should be good there. And basically, we're going to have to remove the back bracket here and swap them and make sure nothing contacts. But this is a smaller bracket, it looks like, so I may not have to actually modify anything. So that's going to be cool. Let's see if it does just fit. It does just fit perfectly. No modifications needed. So this should just go right back in, hopefully. I'm going to see how this fits up here, and we'll take it from there after I do some test fitting. Okay, so after doing some test fitting here, it looks like the thermal pads actually aren't going to contact at all with any of the memory, but hopefully it will still cool fine enough where the memory won't be a problem. Remember, we're using non-standard parts, and they're from a PC in a Mac, so none of this is really meant to go together. So hopefully it will still cool fine. I will clean this up, put the mounting bracket back on. We'll see how it looks in the logic board. And there we have the completed assembly here. The chips don't touch the heatsink, but the heatsink itself touches the main chip, and that's all that matters. Hopefully the system can cool itself enough where we won't have to worry about the VRAM. Otherwise, I may have to come up with another solution. But on other systems, the bigger ones, 27-inch for instance, The heatsink is different. It will have to be modified some to get it to fit properly. And the memory heatsink should actually fit right. But this, it looks like it will work. So let's set it back into the board and see what it looks like. Alright. So now the only thing I have to do is basically put it all back together. That's what it looks like installed onto the board. And I think it will fit fine. I hope. We'll find out, because like I said, I know the 27-inch card will fit, and this is the same size, so it should fit back into the case fine, but we shall see. I am not going to refilm the assembly because I want to get this back together quickly, but it shouldn't be too hard to do. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Well, maybe 30 minutes, however long it takes me to actually get this back together. Just to give you a general idea, this is what it looks like installed. You can see the top, well, I guess that would be the bottom of the card there. Well, okay, the top of the card, because the teeth are on the bottom. And it sits right on top of the hard drive, which means it makes the hard drive harder to replace the hard drive there, and I'm eventually going to be doing that. So that's a bit of a pain, but it fits, and that's what it looks like installed. Now I've just got to hook all the wires back up, put the fans back in, put the IR sensor right here back in, and put the LCD back on and see if it powers on. So let's keep going on. And there is everything hooked back up except for the LCD and RAM. Next time you see it, we'll have the LCD on it. We'll leave the glass off until we make sure it works, and then we'll put the glass back on and do some benchmarks. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. I haven't put the LCD screws back in, but it's plugged in. Let's see what happens. It didn't bong because I forgot that I turned the speakers off, so we're just going to wait and see if we get a display in a second. Hey, the screen kicked on. What is it going to do? Not a whole lot. It is not a good sign. I think it works. Something's just not connected right, I hope. Alright, I just double checked the LVDS cable, or the LCD cable anyway. Let's see if it works this time. And if anything, I'll try to remote into it just to verify that the GPU is working. Because right now it just looks like a display problem. Hey! Yeah, it was a loose LVDS cable. And there we go, we have a video. The card seems to be working. It's running a little sluggish, but it is working. And here we go. Nvidia GeForce GTX 765M 2 gig model. We will finish putting this system back together and do the benchmarks and stuff. So let's get on with it. Okay, so the system is fully back together and fully functional. If we go about this Mac, we can see it says GTX 765M on it, and that's the whole assembly. So now we're going to run the benchmarks, and then we'll quickly show you everything in detail on a screen capture. But right now I just want to do the benchmarks without any headroom or anything like that of it running with all that in the background. So I'll open up the GFX bench, and we'll continue on. It says it's still not supporting 3.1, but that's okay. Here are the settings we're going to be running, and let's start. Alright, and everything is over. I will go over the results with you guys right after. So let's make sure I'm taking a screenshot. Yep, okay. I can already tell that was a big difference. It's impressive. Okay. So let's get out of here. Somehow. How do you get out of this program? Escape key. Okay. So now we'll run what it couldn't run before, the metal test. Okay, and that's the benchmarks for metal. That took a long time, but I'll tell you what, the benchmarks that match the benchmarks on the OpenGL tests, I'll tell you what, ran a lot smoother on metal than they did on OpenGL by a long shot. So let's see here. Okay, so last thing we're going to do is I'm going to go into screen capture, and we'll wrap everything up in screen capture mode, and later on I will be installing Mojave and seeing how that goes. So that should also be interesting. But right now we'll wrap it up in screen capture mode so you can see all the results, and I'll do a separate video sometime in the near future for Mojave. So anyway, here we go. Okay, so here we are in screen capture mode with the new GPU, and if we go over to displays and graphics here, we can see that it is metal supported right here, features set, all that stuff. It says VBIOS because it's of course a PC card. Now Mac Vid Cards is trying to make new cards for these systems, which would be based off of these cards, and it will have a Mac BIOS on it. And honestly, I'd kind of recommend that, because unlike a Mac Pro, a iMac, it's kind of important to have the boot screens and stuff. You can't just easily swap out a GPU if you need the boot screen or to change something. So this is something where you're kind of stuck in whatever operating system you're in, because even though you can run Windows and stuff, with APFS and stuff, it makes it a pain to get back into High Sierra or what this will soon have, which is Mojave. So anyway, that's a bit of a pain, and if Mac VidCards finally releases a card, I'll probably be upgrading this and doing a review on that, because that would be very interesting. But right now, that hasn't happened. So right now, we're still stuck with the PC cards, and they still work, so that's good enough. Anyway, so I thought we'd first go off and go back into GL view here and see more details about the card. Here we go. It's saying 765M OpenGL engine. It says it features versions 1, whatever the metal this is, it supports metal, so that's good. You know, all the features on here, all the information, which is cool. You know, it seems to be working great. Don't see anything majorly wrong here. Can't complain. Now, last thing we should do is compare the Open GL benchmarks here. On top we'll have the GTX, and on the bottom we'll have the 6750M here. And as we can see on the Manhattan tests, the speeds actually improved some. This is just a basic test, really. OpenGL doesn't seem to work super great on certain things on this card, but it is faster. Not a whole lot faster according to this test, but for instance in Manhattan it's a lot quicker. And you know, this program isn't like running 3D Mark, so you can't get a whole lot of detail on it. But if we go into the results of the metal test, which I don't know where I put them, I think these are them right here. The metal test is very impressive, as we can see here. It ran pretty well, and you can see that in the time lapse that I filmed. There was no glitching, no anything like that, no freezing. Where in OpenGL it was freezing every once in a while, but it still ran fine in OpenGL. But metal's where it's at. Metal actually handles this thing handles metal quite well. So anyway, yeah, that's the mid 2011 iMac GPU upgrade there. It went great, and I'm very happy with the results here. I will be doing more experimentation on this. I'll be doing a few more videos on this iMac eventually, showing you how to bypass Windows problems and stuff. Also how to set up Windows 10 properly. Luke Miani did GPT. You can't do that. You need MBR to install Windows 10, otherwise it doesn't work properly and it will crash. And it's a lot harder to do all this stuff without an optical drive when it comes to Windows, and it's also a lot harder when you don't have a official Mac card in here. So it's going to be difficult, but it won't be impossible. So that's cool. Anyway, so that's the end of today's video. Don't forget, guys, I do have a Patreon now if you'd like to support me. There will be a link at the end of the video and also in the description. And also don't forget that I am now supported by SellYourMac.com. So if you go to SellYourMac.com/RutKMods and sell something, I'll get a little kickback, which is very nice. It will help me out. It will help the channel. It will help me be able to continue doing videos like this. And help just have fun, you know. I know you guys enjoy these videos, and that helps me, so it's awesome. Anyway, so yeah, that's the end of the video, and thank you guys for watching. This has been a RutKMods video.